අපි කතා කරන්නේ සීනි කන්න බොන්න හොඳයිද නැද්ද කියලා බලන එක ගැන. මම අද ඉන්නේ සීනි කෑම බීම කන්න හොඳ නෑ කියන එක.
When it comes to education, there are a lot of issues, a lot of things that people discuss these days. But one character that we've seen a lot on social media is Yasodhara, and she has been, I guess the word pushing a lot on the need for homeschooling, or encouraging homeschooling as well. So let's talk here on # Let's Talk with Yasodhara. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Ivan. Vanakkam. So, is it correct for me to say that you are pushing or you're encouraging homeschooling?
I think I was going to actually bring that up immediately. I am pushing and encouraging parents to be more responsible, to take some of that control back, rather than just like, oh, this is what's available, let's just pay and give over the responsibility. Parents have a great role to play in this. It does not mean the answer for every family out there is homeschooling. It takes a certain, maybe a certain kind of personality, it takes a certain commitment, it takes a certain lifestyle, it takes all kinds of different elements for a family to be able to homeschool.
So parents would need to sort of reorganize the entire setup to be able to homeschool.
So when a lot of people talk about homeschooling, they say, oh, I don't have the money to do it and I don't have the knowledge to do it. And I always say those are not the two key factors, because homeschooling actually is way cheaper than sending your child to school. And when people talk about knowledge or certificates or education of the parents, your job is not to be a teacher. Your job is not to replace the school teacher. Your job is to facilitate. So facilitation requires a very different skill set than a school teacher. But that aside, I think it takes a lot of, as you said, the whole setup. Your lifestyle, your ecosystem has to be a particular way. So what I actually push for rather than homeschooling is that parents are deeply unhappy with what is out there, what is available. So parents need to kind of maybe have another career. But they need to ask the questions. They need to say, well, this is what I expect of the school. Why are you not delivering? What can we do? How can we change this? So it's not about homeschooling per se, but about how can we make sure that our children get the best in all kinds of diverse surroundings and situations.
Now you have 3 kids and 2 of them are being homeschooled. One is, how old are
7
your kids?
months.
7 months. So what motivated you to switch to homeschooling for your kids?
So I was homeschooled.
Okay.
But not in the way that I would do it. But I remember being about 10 years old type of thing, and thinking, even then thinking, this is not how I wish to be homeschooled. This is not ideal for me. However, I saw the freedom in it. And for me, one of the key sort of driving words in my life is freedom. We need freedom. In all areas, we need freedom. We need freedom to live. And for me, the freedom that family life gives you with homeschooling is unparalleled.
Okay.
And
so then what about interaction? Isn't that something also that's important for kids, that they interact with other children, try to share knowledge, learn things from other kids as well? Isn't that also part of the whole schooling process?
I think that's the number one point that comes up globally when you talk about homeschooling. Everybody goes, "Oh, what about socialization?" There's this idea that homeschooled kids are just kind of locked up in a house, just the family type of thing. Two parts to it. The first is that the idea that children need to interact with children born the same year as them is very unnatural and very artificial. And that didn't really come into human civilization till about 100, 150 years ago. So it's relatively new, considering we've had like 10,000 years of civilization, right? So it's a very artificial idea. The part that does matter is that children have the opportunity to socialize and interact with a diverse group of people. So all ages, older, younger, whatever, different backgrounds, different cultures, different everything, right? So with that, I think it's one of the key responsibilities of a homeschooling parent to ensure that their child has that. So my kids go to different classes. I also really encourage them to learn from a wider group of adults or other people. So whatever we can always learn something from someone, right? So I always encourage them to kind of explore that. Like, is it your grandparents? Is it your neighbors? Is it the three-wheeler driver? Like anybody. Right. So they're great at that. They're always interacting with somebody.
And how they've seen this whole? Have they asked you, like, why are we not in school? Why are we always doing our studies at home? Has that always come, or had at any point come up? No.
Not in a big way. Part of my ethos as a parent is to always have a very open communication with the kids. So there's never been a silence on the topic and then one big day where they go, "Oh, Amma, why don't we go to school?" It's not that. It's always these discussions of what do you think you're getting that kids who are in school are maybe not getting? What do you think you're missing that kids in school are getting, right? So it's this constant two-way communication that I have with the kids on all topics anyway.
Okay.
But when it comes to the schooling, the kids are very happy they don't have to wake up at like 4, 5, 6 in the morning.
Right.
They have a much more relaxed lifestyle.
Have their own holidays whenever they want to.
Not really. Not with me. Yeah, I am a bit strict on that.
So you have strict, like, school days are these days, school hours are this sort of thing, or studies for this? You work a schedule or something? How
not
does it
really.
No.
Both me and my husband's work is quite full on, and we also in terms of our work don't have a 9 to 5. So the kids kind of also fall into that. And it also means when we need to take family time, we're going to take family time. Okay. Because that's also very key. But we try to, so I don't kind of keep an eye every day, but for me it's about a week. So in this last 7 days, have we done enough? Is there more we could do? And then if the kids are also not feeling up to it, I don't believe in kind of forcing it down their throat. So if the kids are not feeling well, they'll always say, "Can we have a book day?" Which means they're not allowed to read fiction on those days. So it's all the reference books. They'll have history books or science books or whatever. So they'll just take to the couch, read these books. Sometimes they take notes. So that will be like a relaxed day for them. But they're still learning. Okay. So yeah, different ways of learning.
Now, you were seen a lot during the Aragalia. Your images were posted all over you, going with your kid for the protests.
And pregnant with a crutch.
Pregnant with a crutch, yes. There was also some criticism about you, right, at that time. Yeah. Why are you taking your child out there? Aren't you putting the child at risk? How did you face that sort of criticism? How did you respond to sort of criticism?
Firstly, it was very strange because I first went viral with the pregnant image, so with the crutch, and it was touted as this inspirational, like, look at her, if she can go, what are our excuses type of thing, none of which I asked for. Right. And none of which I wasn't trying to be inspirational by being out there. I was as a person in this country, as a mom, I was just trying to do what I believed was my duty. It had nothing to do with going any further than that. To the extent that actually, even though I'm quite active on my social media, during the Aragale, I was posting a lot of the opinions and stuff from other people, but my own time and my own image at the protest, I never posted. Right. So anything that came out ended up being this accidental viral stuff. But then literally a few months later, just rejoining the protest with my son, it was completely the opposite. So I think more than anything, it's really interesting comment on how we view women and how we view mothers. That how can I be inspirational? It's still me and the same baby. Nothing had really changed.
Yeah.
But how is it that me as a woman seemed inspirational in one setting, but then as soon as the baby is visible,
Something
it was
else.
something else. So that's, I don't want to answer that question, but I
Right.
think it raises really interesting social questions.
Right.
In terms of handling it, it was, I have to admit, it was very difficult. A lot of sleepless nights. I had a newborn baby, and a lot of nights where the whole house, everybody else was asleep, and I'd be up nursing my baby in the middle of the night, and all these some pretty horrendous stuff I was sent would kind of go through my head in the night, type of thing. Very difficult.
Were there concerns from your husband and family, like, okay, this is now taking a different direction, maybe you need to pull back?
I think there's a daily thing of like, okay, how do we protect our family?
Yeah.
But not like a bigger conversation around social media. I think social media, I'd not actually faced anything like that before, that kind of backlash.
Right.
I had for a couple of other things, but not to the same scale.
Okay.
But I have to say, part of the reason it didn't raise those bigger questions as a family was because on the phone, there was all this hate. But every time I step out of the house,
Right.
the number of people who came up to us on the bus, on the pavement, wherever,
Right.
and all the positivity that came out just completely kind of swept the other stuff away. It was
Okay.
it was incredible.
Okay.
I remember
So this
like
is
we
probably
were-
just one section of society who are just, or
Yeah.
these people that you call keyboard warriors who are just trying to attack you for
I think
various
it's very
reasons.
I think it's very easy to be on your phone
Yeah.
to a faceless, not a person.
Yeah.
I'm not a person to them.
Yeah.
Anybody who says that kind of thing, I'm not a person to them.
Okay.
So I can't even take it that seriously. So we got through it.
Okay. The other thing that came up was you, when it comes to parenting, like taking care of your kid, breastfeeding your child, and then, these images of you doing that in public. That again, I saw some criticism. People were questioning, what are you doing?
So you're referring to the video
Yes.
that was done, right?
Yeah.
That's the only time I think that's okay. I haven't seen the comments.
Okay.
I saw a media group had done a video. I've seen one comment that said, "Oh, here she goes, attention seeking again,"
Oh, okay.
and or something to that effect.
Yeah.
And it was really it was a very simple thing. I had come to do the video like I have today, but at that time I couldn't leave the baby at home,
Right.
and he just wouldn't settle.
Okay.
And he wouldn't stay with my daughters, he wouldn't stay with anybody else. He was just crying and crying. And we are in an office where we are now disturbing a lot of people.
Okay.
And studio time, as you know, is very precious.
Yeah.
And you're booked for a particular time. And not necessarily criticizing that system, but
Yeah.
when you bring in a nursing mom into that and
Yeah.
you only have 15 minutes to shoot something,
Yeah.
you don't necessarily have that flexibility.
Yeah. But it was not a case where you were trying to make this
No, so
something
I just-
normal that,
We weren't thinking of that at all.
At all, okay.
It was just that baby was crying, and we were all trying to figure out like what can we do. We had such little time to shoot,
yeah.
and then I said, well, can I feed him and can we carry on?
Yeah.
Because we know he'll be quiet if I'm feeding. And there were like only 2 or 3 other people in the room, and we all went, yeah, if you're comfortable, let's just do it because we
Yeah.
are running out of time.
Yeah. No, the reason I brought that up is because even in public transport when this happens,
Yeah.
you have eyes looking. Sometimes people looking at like, what is that mother doing? Why is she
I've not found
breastfeeding that?
So I've been feeding Kavi now for the last 7 months. Buses, I feed him and walk down the
Okay.
road.
Okay.
That I admit is a little extreme for people.
Yeah.
I'm a very impatient person, so I don't really like this whole like sitting around while he feeds, and then I
Yeah.
have so much to do in a day that I need to just keep going.
Yeah.
But actually, particularly buses, public transport, public places, as long as I'm sitting, it's been great.
Right.
And I don't use a cover up or anything. I just wear appropriate clothes.
Yeah.
And now that I'm doing it, I started seeing actually how many other women do.
Doing it.
Though my social media following have told me there is a big Colombo Western Province and rest of the country divide. So in Western Province, it's more frowned upon,
Okay.
and the rest of the country, they don't even cover up.
Okay. Yeah.
I remember this one lady, particularly in Thangal bus station, and she wasn't covered up at all. And she had like an 18-month-old, and she was just feeding whenever she wanted and everything. And it was like really funny, that bus station, there were about 4 mums all at the same time, including me. We were all feeding, and it was a bit like, okay, this is maybe not a bus station anymore.
Yeah.
So I think outside of Colombo Western Province, there's a lot more freedom.
But that's not strange, right? I mean, you would think that people in the Western Province would be more open to that, because their lifestyles, they've seen how people in the West also do this. But then yet,
But in the West, you're not allowed to do it.
Oh,
So Western Province is way more westernized,
Okay.
apt name.
Yeah.
So we're way more European in Colombo and Western Province than we are in the rest of the country.
Okay.
And in Europe, that's one of the most beautiful experiences, having a baby now in Sri Lanka for the first time.
Right.
I would not have been able to breastfeed this freely and this comfortably in the UK. Or women are like chucked out of restaurants, they are told to cover up, they are told to, can't you go do it in the toilet? Like the number one thing in the UK is just go to the public toilet and feed.
Okay.
And so many women end up doing that because they don't feel able to fight against it. So we have in Colombo and Western Province taken a lot of those attitudes in, whereas the rest of the country is way better.
As a parent, when it comes to parenting, I mean, what are the challenges that you would say, because you are a public figure, what sort of challenges do you constantly face in society? Is it difficult, trying to juggle this public image and then also having to be, quote unquote, a responsible parent as well?
At the moment, not. I do foresee, particularly now Radha is 12, turning 13 this year. So far we've been in a bubble by ourselves.
I'm not too sure if you mentioned this, but you have 2 daughters and 1 son.
Yeah, so Anuradha is 12 and a half, Indumati is 8, almost turning 9 in 2 months.
Okay.
And Kaviswara is 8 months in a couple of days.
Okay.
So for now we've been kind of more family unit, but with the teenage years now just coming up, we will have to make some choices, we will have to look at how things are. But with the social media versus mom thing, I do talk to the kids all the time. So almost every story I post, we have that dialogue about, are you comfortable with this? Are you not comfortable? What are you comfortable with? So anything they're not comfortable with, I don't post.
Okay.
And lots of people ask me this like privacy concerns stuff, right? There's nothing really private that I really share, even though it's our day-to-day and it's, but if there's something really worth protecting,
you don't put it out.
I obviously, I can't work in the mental health field and be a life coach and all of that and not be aware of those impacts, right? So I'm very, very aware. Also, my kids have no access to a device.
Okay.
So they have no idea about the backlash. They have no idea about the comments that I get back. So I am the shield.
Okay.
Which again will change with the teenage years coming up. So we will take those challenges on and adjust ourselves accordingly.
And I've also noticed that you are encouraging them to accept diversity. You're, teaching them every aspect of Sri Lankan society as well. What's the story behind that?
Isn't that all of our responsibility?
Which we don't see every parent doing. But is this something that, has something that you have felt very strongly about, that you need to ensure that your kids know everything and learn as much as possible?
Yeah, as a child, with a strong when I was a child, with a strong Sri Lankan identity, even though I was born in the UK, it was a very Sinhala-based Sri Lankan identity. And as a child, I remember questioning, why don't we even have a little knowledge of Tamil? Why is it that if I traveled in Sri Lanka, there's a whole language I can't even read? It made no sense, right? I'm not saying we need to be trilingually fluent.
Right.
That's a little ambitious. But we need to have a certain understanding of what's happening, what are the festivals, what do they mean?
Yeah.
So we actually celebrate all the festivals at home. We just finished doing the kolam and everything for Thai Pongal. So I make the pongal rice. So not the religious aspects, not the aspects that would maybe hit those communities in the heart, because we are not connected in that way. But in whatever way we can, we celebrate. And my kids learn, they can read and write in Tamil better than I can. And I'm currently learning, so I go to class at the moment and learn.
Okay.
But actually, it's been amazing. So I've only been going to classes for 2 months or something now. And I went to, where was I? I was in Pasikuda or Trinco in December.
Okay.
And I got scammed in a shop, but I understood this time.
Right.
So I bought a hairband, and the Mudalali asked the shop assistant, like, how much is it? And in Tamil, and now I understand, she said 30 rupees, and the Mudalali with a completely straight face said $40 to me. And inside I was like laughing my head off. I gave the $40 and I walked out. It's not a point for me to argue. But I'm really, like, a whole world has opened up. And every time I go to a cyber kade or anywhere now, I can like understand more. I can read now. It's really exciting. It feels like a whole part of the country has opened up, and it's kind of sad for how many people that is not the case.
Yeah.
So the more we learn, the more we integrate, the more we connect.
Okay.
The more empathy also that we will have for people, the more we'll understand people, the more kindness and compassion we can have for people. So it's and part of, I don't want my kids to have an identity based on an ethnic group. They're Sri Lankan.
Okay.
I'm Sri Lankan. You're Sri Lankan, with different practices, and we can all celebrate that.
And I noticed that you also travel a lot to more or less all parts of the country with your kids. So that, is it a case where you're trying to get them to know more about Sri Lanka as well?
Yeah, so in December we did the Insta trip.
Oh, okay.
So we packed for 5 days. We left on Boxing Day, day after Christmas, and we went to Fort bus station, put up 4 bus destinations, asked my Insta followers to vote.
Okay.
Whatever won the vote, we got on. And for the next 4 days, we kept asking them to vote again and again and again. So we had no idea where we were going.
Okay.
And we ended up going to Kurunagala, Dambulla, Tirikunnamale, Pasikuda, Habarana, Kandy, and then came home. And
so non-stop on the road?
Non-stop, so bus only.
Yeah.
Bus was the only transport allowed. We
Okay.
did 700 kilometers in 5 days.
Okay.
13 buses, I think.
Okay.
Epic.
Okay.
Epic. And all 5 of us, we learned so much. I saw like Hal Messo and Carol being like dried for the first time, like so much stuff. It's yeah, like this country has so much to offer, and if we can do it if we can keep exploring, we'll start celebrating more.
So do you see your kids staying here continuously? I mean, a lot of parents now, with everything that's happening, are suddenly sending their kids out of the country.
Yeah.
As a parent, are you seeing a future for your kids in Sri Lanka?
I give my kids a lot of freedom. They are allowed to choose whatever they want. I have no, I'm not a parent to say you have to be this, you have to marry this, you have to do, like, I don't care. Be happy. But in Sri Lanka, I'm very strict on that one. They're not going anywhere. I mean, there might be something where they have to. I understand that. But for the most part, we, as a country, where there are difficulties, where there are challenges, where there are things that are missing that we have not developed yet, that's because we haven't done it, not because someone was supposed to hand us a fully grown country, right? And if other countries have facilities that you like, they have them because those people built them, not because they magically got them.
Right.
So whether it's your rights, whether it's facilities, whether it's infrastructure, we have to stay here and build. And I want my kids, my family to be part of that. Non-politically, but I want us to be part of whatever we can build, we'll build.
It was really good talking to you, Yasodhara. Thank you for being with us on the program today.
Thank you for asking me.
My pleasure. So that's all the time we have for you. Till next time, stay safe.